Carla?
Hey, John.
Okay. So this is part 2, the letter ZAYIN. So the other thing about the letter ZAYIN is that it's not just adorned with weapons, but what that means is identified, sign hey hey, as special. Well, how do you do that? Well, illustrations from the Renaissance era, say, would put a halo behind central characters. And then they had somebody came up with some rules and said, well, the primary character, let's say, has a round halo. Somebody else would maybe have a triangular halo or a square halo. But it's just so you have a group of people and you have these different halos on, and it means, okay, that's the guy, the saint or the whoever. Well, that's kind of having an officer's hat in the military. The more strange looking the hat, if you look at religious characters throughout history, is like their hats are just bizarre. Some of the hats are really outrageous. It's like, well, look at if he has a certain shape or size of hat, that must mean he's the. It's kind of like having a halo. It's a special indicator. So for Yahusha to have the crown of thorns put on him was a zayining of that same type of halo, the crown. There's this concept that says, well, there's certain people that are set apart. So in the military, you might have a ceremonial sword. They might not ever use that sword, but the fact that he's wearing a sword or a gun or a certain adorned with weapons means that they're the person to regard as the significant character, the protagonist, the hero. Well, that's just because we've got this ZAYIN thing built into our psyche, into our consciousness. There's this other idea that people have that if you have, let's call it a medicine man, a witch doctor, a shaman, a priest, some sort of prophetic seer, well, those are special people. And if they say something, well, you better listen to what they say because what? Do they have special insight? Well, they might. What does that mean? Well, typically, one of those kind of people dress a certain way, have a certain hat. They have a certain regard because they seem to have an influence with, let's just say, the spirit realm, the invisible realm, angels and demons. So the role of a prophet, priest, seer kind of guy is that somehow the spirits have chosen that person to talk to or to talks through. It's not the same thing as channeling, a little different. There's a guy named Black Elk of the Lakota Sioux tribe, South Dakota area. And he got sick when he was a kid and tremendous fever. And somehow when he came out of it, he was able to see things and know things that normal, regular people didn't. And it's like, well, what is he saying? He had visions of stuff and who knows, whatever. And it's like, as far as I know from the couple of books I read about it, he wasn't trying to be somebody special. It was just this almost like a mantle was just placed upon him. And it's like, well, is that legitimate or not? Some of those character types in cultures around the earth are such that a spirit's telling me that this is going to happen and you guys better do that, or you're going to have favor in this battle. And it's like, yeah, we're going to get favor. Let's go. And it's like, well, wait a minute, is that true or not? Do they just know what to say in order to give people the encouragement to take on an attitude? And is it their attitude that's giving them power? See, what are the mechanics of the universe? We don't really know. If you pay attention to what one of those guys say, so that you'll get the blessing instead of the curse, it's like, are you putting a person in the position of being an Elohim, which is not suitable? Did the person try to become a seer, or were they actually a seer? And it's like, some people see stuff. Gosh. somebody sent me a video. I don't know who this guy is or what his name is, but apparently something interesting happened. And there's been within just a short while, like 1 million views on the internet about this guy. He had this thought that I'd like to see a pillar of fire. God's no respecter of persons. I should be able to see a pillar of fire. If the Israelites got to see a pillar of fire, that would be pretty cool. And he had this thought, a voice said, where he heard it was the voice of God, and he said, I want to worship with you today. And he says, oh, okay. Well, he was counseling as a Christian pastor. Just a short story here. And a long line of people, and at exactly 5:14, the last guy left. He turned off the lights, put on some worship music, and as he started to be in this zone of worship, he felt God come up and hug him, pressed his chest like maybe Jesus or an angel or somebody just hugging him. And then exactly 5:15, so it was a knock on the door, another person he had to counsel. And it's like, well, that lasted 1 minute. A little bit later, within the hour, there's a bunch of fire trucks outside. And fire chief said, hey, where's the fire? And it's like, there's no fire. We've just searched the whole place. He says, I myself, the fire chief said, I myself saw smoke billowing out of that door. And he says, that's my office. He said, it was exactly 5:14. It lasted for 1 minute. It's like, wow. Well, there was a Christmas tree. And so here, it's like, think about this. Okay. So 1 million views watching this 2-minute interview. The guy's a church pastor, and he's got a Christmas tree going on because it was a Christmas season. And he gets this validation of a pillar of smoke, pillar of fire, but he didn't see it, but Moses didn't see it. Moses was inside, but Joshua and Israel saw it. That's what the guy was saying. So it's like, wow, that's proof that we must be right, that we must be doing the right stuff. Really? Sunday church where the Lord, don't even use his name, celebrating Christmas, so you're not regarding the Moedim, I can presume, but you got the validation of the pillar of smoke. Wow. And the thing on the screen was, Jesus is real. Yeah, but what did Yahweh say? He said, don't mix with the pagan festivals. Don't do what the pagans do, like you're worshiping me, like you're having a Christmas tree and changing the Sabbath day to the first day of the week instead of the seventh day. Don't do that. Listen to my voice. I thought, listen to his voice? Well, you got a hug from Jesus because Jesus is real. And it's like, yeah, but which Jesus is that? I don't know this man. I'm not trying to accuse him. But, the more I look at stuff, especially the last recently few weeks or so, there is so much AI stuff. I have no idea what's real. This one thing came up. Have you ever seen Jurassic Park where they get find a piece of amber and there's a mosquito stuck in it from the prehistoric days, and they pull it out and they extract the DNA that he was sucking blood from some creature, and I know I've heard them working on this. Jurassic Park as a movie was just trying to show you what they're really working on. They were trying to recreate some dinosaurs. Well, apparently they've got woolly mammoths that they found frozen in Siberia, still got the blood, and so they've recreated a couple woolly mammoths. And is this true? I don't know, but there was a photograph, a video showing 2 baby woolly mammoths. It says they got them, just like Jurassic Park. And it's like, really? Yeah, there's the photograph of them. It's like, I don't know if that's true. I don't know if that's AI or not. In fact, there's all kinds of stuff they're finding in caves under the earth. Some guy was just showing some footage under the Devil's Tower in, was it in Utah? That they took some X-ray vision and found a cave. So they went crawling in there and they found all these artifacts from Egypt and some space alien stuff, reptilian. Is that whole thing a scam? I don't know. In fact, the more present that we see, the less we can trust and the less we can know. Except, what did Yahuwah say? So, I went to college to learn some stuff, And I've kept learning, reading encyclopedias and books and listening to things. And all of a sudden, I've found that, like present tense, all of a sudden we've reached this tipping point where the more you try to learn, the more you're being lied to, the more you're being fooled, the more you're being duped. And there's absolutely no way to determine which is true or which is a scam. Whether it's religious, that interview might have been completely AI. I don't know. I can choose to believe it's true, but that doesn't mean it's true. The only thing that I can count on as true is what did Yahweh say. But I can't trust the King James. I can't even trust the Greek or the Latin. Andrew Gabriel Roth is a proponent of the Aramaic, and let's hope we can trust that. But the only thing I believe I can trust is what did Yahweh say looking at these Hebrew letters. Because the Hebrew language itself is ZAYIN from all other languages. And the thing about the Paleo-Hebrew is that it was used before 500 BC. And if Daniel is the guy that was told to hide the word and seal the book, we were talking about that a couple of weeks ago, Daniel 12, verse 4. And then in verse 9, Gabriel says to him, okay, Daniel, the words are hidden and sealed until the time of the end. He was told to do it, and then he was said, okay, it is done. As if to say, you, Daniel, are commissioned to accomplish this task. Hide the words and seal the book until the time Ayin Dalet Ayin Tav Kuf Zadi. End of what? End of the curse? Maybe end of the age, maybe, but it doesn't say of the age. It just says till the time Kuf Zadi. What does Kuf mean? What does Zadi mean? Kuf like this pillar of fire, pillar of smoke. Kuf like a question mark, an exclamation point. Kuf meaning the back of the head, meaning that which follows, like a wake of a ship, footprints. Zadi, blossoming sprout. Go, do. Something like Pei Zadi is open mouth, explode, detonate. Until the time Ayin Dalet hyphen Ayin Tav Kuf Zadi. If that's now, then what is the Pei Zadi? What is the mouth flourishing? Well, it's Yahweh's words being taken for what they are. Really, at face value, as the real, what did he say? Not the scam, not the distortion, not having changed what was Kadosh, making the first day of the week some kind of Elohim, which it's not, which it can't be. He already said we can't make for ourselves Elohim. Then why did they, the church, the Council of Nicaea, St. Constantine, and the bishops and cardinals and the popes, why do they think that that's acceptable? Oh, because they got visions and they got signs and wonders. Yeah, but it's not about signs and wonders, is it? Do signs and wonders validate the truth? Or is it simply what did Yahweh say validates the truth? So to go back and say, well, what do these letters mean? It's literally the only thing of any value. There's a verse that says, let not the wise man find glory in his wisdom, or the strong man glory in his strength, or the wealthy man have any glory in his wealth, but by this can a man glorify himself, knowing me, knowing Yahweh. And Yahweh is known by the word me, Aleph Tav Yod, or Aleph Vav Tav Yod, two different ways. Well, Aleph Tav, that's, what does this mean? From Aleph to Tav, the expanse. The word Ruach, spirit, mind, will, means expanse, means to enlarge, means like to the wind blowing down a canyon from here to there. So in that kind of linear expanse, the Greek way of thinking as opposed to the cyclical, is that, well, starts with Aleph and expands to Tav. That itself is called Ruach. And if this is Yahuwah's word and Yahuwah's mind, Yahuwah's spirit, then that makes this Hebrew ALEF-BEIT the Ruach HaChodesh. Otherwise translated, the Holy Spirit. So the word Shiach, Shin Yod Het, is communication. Mem Shin Yod Het makes it the communicator, or the tangible communication, otherwise known as Messiah. So I can look at this Hebrew alphabet and say, well, if it's that Elohim associates himself with it in John 1, if by definition it's the communication, then it's Mashiach. If it's the Ruach HaKodesh, then that's all this alphabet. So am I trying to deify the alphabet? No, I'm just trying to say it's the source, or the thing to look at as what people call both the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. It's the trinity of all that right here in this alphabet. Just to say, whatever you make of that is up to you. But it really is kadosh. It really is the ZAYIN set apart from everything else, not just the language that's set apart, but it's the subject matter set apart from all other subject matters that's possible to contemplate. And as you're contemplating that, you're synchronizing your mind to the only thing true and real in the entire universe and beyond. Leolam. Well, what's the encampment of the warlord? What is it like to be under the feathers of the hen if you're one of the chicks? It's like this. That's what this is. So I could say, well, the last verse in Revelation, may the grace of the Lord Jesus Christ. That's this. May the comfort, the perspective, the refuge and shelter, the synchronizing with his vibe that you get for pondering his voice, his words from his perspective, be with you, and you might say, conduct you unto eternity, faithfully, in truth, because it's trustworthy. That's the word amen. That's the word to have faith. That's the word to be taught, trained, educated, and skilled as we then contemplate his stuff. Is that what John was saying by the last verse of Revelation, the last verse of the entire Bible? See, what I have to do is take every word as it appears in English or Greek or Aramaic or Hebrew, whatever, and then redefine the words based on the spelling of the Hebrew words, based on the meaning of the whole thing, based on the meaning of each individual letter, because of where it falls and what it means and how it ties to the entire pattern. And if I can see the way the first 7 letters line up with the days of creation, and then say, well, the first 7 letters correlate to the first 7 days of creation, the next 11 letters between the Het and the Zadi are patterned according to the first 7. Yeah, but how does 7 compare to 11? The Aleph lines up with Het Tet Yod, the Bet with Kaf Lamed, the Gimel with Mem Nun, and then Dalet He Vav with Samek Ayin Pei, and then the Zadi with the Zayin. Well, the Zayin happens to be the place of the crucifixion, the Zadi the place of the resurrection. Well, those are two very pertinent occasions, events in Yahusha's life story, right? The crucifixion event, the resurrection event, they're both number 7 in the pattern. They're both, like in the song, Zadi stands alone, though all Israel shall become. Zadi stands alone. Well, Zion stands alone as well. But differently than the way Zadi stands alone. I'm just saying that as you contemplate the letters in their sequence order, keyed to the Mishkan pattern, and it's like, yeah, but there's 7 there and there's 11 there. It's like teeth on a key. Het Tet Yod. Somebody asked this question. Let me define this about the chart. Why these colors? Well, it all started with blue, purple, red, white, as in blue for the letter Yod, purple for the letter Hey, red for the Vav, and white for the Hey, Yod Hey Vav Hey. That established the color pattern for this whole thing. I believe that's this line right here. Techilet is the word for blue. He said to have techilet, or the blue thread, in the zitziot. The throne room floor looked like it had sapphire, it's translated, sapphire paving stones, as it were. That's generally blue. Blue, purple, red, white were the colors of the embroidery on the Mishkan. Blue, purple, red, and white linen, then some gold threads. And back in 2004, I believe it was, I was just contemplating these things. And I got the Tanakh, and it's like, I remember thinking, well, it was red, blue, and no, blue, purple, red. Every single time, it never changed the order of the colors. It wasn't red or purple. It was blue, purple, red. Well, why? I don't know why. It's just every time, 20-something times in Leviticus and a few times in Numbers, every time that order of colors was stated regarding the Mishkan embroidery, it was always blue, purple, red, white linen, and then sometimes it mentioned gold thread. Okay, that's just the embroidery. And I was thinking about it, pondering about it, thinking, well, the tetragrammaton, the sacred four-letter name, there's four letters and there's four colors. I wonder if I could compare the two. I'm just telling you the reason for the color pattern on the chart here. What if I could compare the spelling of Yod He Vav He to the colors blue, purple, red, white? And that's this line right down here, where it says blue lining up with Het Het Yod, lining up with the big white fence of linen. Well, but if the big white fence, why isn't the white over there? It's a secret code. It's like teeth on the key, a pattern. I'm just telling you. If you look at Andrew Hoy's Mishkan, it's not a big white fence. It's colored fence. The whole fence is blue, purple, and red, dyed linen. But here it's talking about the big white fence. I said backlit fire of kuf, just for the sake of the artistic poetry of it. Picture a big white fence, and when Moshe goes into the meeting place, the ohel, the tent, the covered place, the pillar of fire is above it at night. Well, if you're back in the camp and there's a pillar of fire, big white fence, the big white fence will be glowing, kind of like a lampshade. The presence of Yahweh. So the whole idea of this, his presence in his Mishkan, with at least the embroidery on the door, blue, purple, red, white, just as a pictorial concept. What does that got to do with the letter Yod? Well, what is the letter Yod? It's the 10th letter, but Yod as a suffix means my. Yod as the prefix means he will. He Vav He, like in Yod He Vav He, means cause to exist. So Yod He Vav He basically could be read as he will cause it to exist, or he who causes it to exist. So that's like third person description. Aleph He Yod He, I am, I will. See, that's different. Ehyeh asher ehyeh, I am that I am, or I will be what I will be. Moshe said, who shall I say sent me? Tell him Ehyeh sent you. But he then goes on to say, but Yahuwah is my Shem Zakar. So Yahuwah is us referring to him, he who causes it to exist. But when he refers to himself, it's more the Ehyeh, I am. But he calls himself Yahuwah. He gives us this name because it'll stick in the head like a barbed hook, like a zadi. That's why the zadi in this particular shape in the paleo is shaped like a barbed hook on purpose. Some people say, well, it's drawn in modern like a hunter, a guy laying on the ground with his knee up in the air. And it's like, a hunter with his knee up in the air? What the? That's just what people say. They say a bunch of stuff. I'm just trying to say the theory of what's behind this is that the Het, Tet, and Yod work together, all three, lining up with Passover. Kaf Lamed line up with then the altar sacrifice. Mem Nun line up with the laver. And then Samik with the menorah. Ayin, table of showbread. Pei lining up with the altar of incense. The Zadi lining up with the Ark of the Covenant. The Kuf lining up with the pillar of fire, pillar of smoke. But outside the big white fence was the place of the red heifer sacrifice. And what that was about was that anybody in contact with the dead, what, they got germs on them, they couldn't just walk into the big white fence. They couldn't just enter the Mishkan. Well, the common person wasn't allowed to enter the Mishkan anyway. In fact, even the regular priests didn't really. It was the Levites who were conducting the offerings. Well, the altar of sacrifice was right inside the gate, and then there was the laver they could wash up and clean up, and then they didn't just go in and hang out inside the sacred place, inside the tent. I mean, what was the protocol of this thing's use? It wasn't for the common person. Well, then what's the red heifer for? The red heifer was for those in contact with the dead. They'd get a red cow that doesn't have a single white hair, and they'd burn it to ash. They'd mix it with some water, and they'd use it like soap, like making lye to clean. Well, they didn't scrub down everything. It was more of a ceremonial or a ritual cleansing, so that if you're in contact with the dead, now you can go into the Mishkan. But the regular person didn't go in. So this is all metaphorical in this consideration. So I can say, those of us who are not in the kingdom, if the big red, white fence represents the kingdom of Yahuwah, if it represents his name, if it represents those who are of us common people who want to be his people, want to be Israel, well, let's just go in and say, Yahweh is my Elohim, and let's just charge in. No, you've been in contact with the dead? Well, I don't know. What's the dead? Physically, did you bury a corpse? Were you taking roadkill off the streets, the raccoons and the deer that were hit last night? On the street crew, you just can't come into the Mishkan. Well, those people didn't come into the Mishkan anyway. Like I said, it's metaphorical. If you've been listening to rock and roll music and sporting tattoos, well, then you've been in contact with the dead. What? How do you get cleansed from that stuff? You got junk in your trunk, as somebody said. Well, how do you get cleansed? Well, the red heifer sacrifice. There is no red heifer anymore that we could get. But that's the same place of Yeshua getting crucified, the Vav man Zion. As a matter of fact, if Het, Tet, and Yod represents Pesach, the Vav is the masculine connector, nail, hook, bridge, coupling device. Well, then putting the Vav to the Zion is getting circumcised. And you're not allowed to come in and keep Passover unless the men have been circumcised. Getting your Vav Zioned so that you can enter the Het of Yahweh? If this is all metaphorical, that certainly wasn't metaphorical. That's still in force. As a matter of fact, when we first started regarding the Moedim here, there was some Christian churches that were having a wide open, hey, it's a Passover celebration. Why don't you all come and see, looky-loos. Here, come and see how them Jews do it. Only we're going to do it as Christians. We're going to do it the real way. Because we believe in Jesus and Jesus Christ is our Passover, we're going to have a Passover Seder, and we're going to have ham on Easter and do whatever else we want to do, because it doesn't matter what you eat anymore. And we're going to show you how them Jews conduct their ritual celebration. And it's like, are all your men supposed to be circumcised? We don't have to do that anymore. Jesus is our sacrifice because he was crucified on the cross, so we don't have to be. That's not what Yahweh said. No, that's what our ritual, our custom, our tradition has replaced what Yahweh said. So then there's the question of, showing a friend the other day, he said, hey, you should read Leviticus 23. And he says, hey, let me ask you about this. You guys just did Sukkot. Read Leviticus 23. And it says you're supposed to offer all these sacrifices. You doing that? Are you picking and choosing? I said, I'm picking and choosing. I'm not offering all those sacrifices. So aren't I then just as guilty as everybody else, every other scoundrel? Maybe. So then you have somebody like Ellen White of the SDA Church said, oh, he did away with the ceremonial law. We don't have to do any of those festivals. It's like, where did he ever say that? Well, the church said that. Well, then it's like, how do you pick and choose what he said? And I'm just bringing up to issue because there's no real good answer to these things, but I'm making an issue of it because as soon as you start talking about what did Yahweh say and let's do what he said, these things are the matter which happen. So I can say, listen, Yahusha did get crucified in the position of I can read about circumcision to get going to Pesach. I can read about red heifer sacrifice. I can read about, behold this man. He was crucified outside the gate. That was a place of decontamination. And the word spelled het tet yod in Hebrew, you look in the dictionary and it means my sin. Het tet aleph is sin, but het tet is sin. Yod suffix makes it my personal sin. So I can say het tet yod literally reads the word my sin, but it also reads my sin offering. And it also reads to incur guilt. I incurred guilt because I sinned. My sin offering incurs my guilt for me because that's what a sin offering is, the great exchange. But it also means find favor, be restored to relationship. So that one word spelled het tet yod, I can say means all those things. It's the whole picture. It doesn't mean Pesach. That's a different word. But the pattern is it's the first moed, which is Pesach. So I can say, well, just get circumcised and then you're good. And it's like, well, he did say, be circumcised of heart. Remove the barrier, the obstruction of your heart. Love Yahweh your Elohim with all your heart. Listen to my voice with all your Shin Kuf Dalet, all your zeal, Mem Aleph Dalet, madly. Kuf Nun Aleph, jealous, zealously. Be about his stuff. With that attitude, instead of the casual disregard, the stuff that he hates, talked about in Leviticus 26. And I could say, well, a few times he says, it's not about the sacrifices. Well, yes, it is about the sacrifices. Read right there in Leviticus 23, where he says, this is the sacrifice you'll conduct at Passover. This is when you're going to, every day of Sukkot, you're supposed to do it. He's the guy who mandated the sacrificial offerings. ZAYIN bet het, sacrificial offering. Altar, mem ZAYIN bet het, the object upon which the sacrificial feast offering is conducted. He's the guy that even brought that up. He knew it was going to be this problem. And I could say, well, if there's a truth to the matter of the Christian New Testament understanding that Christ died on the cross as the culmination of all sacrifices, if I appropriate that equation, then it's not about the sacrifices. But he said it never was about the sacrifices. Well, then why did he give us sacrifices? Have you ever tried to celebrate something or do something? Just think in your own life. Have you ever tried to do something and yet you feel like, well, I didn't really celebrate it right. I didn't really accomplish it yet. It's like, well, what do you do? We have this thing built in, and this I'm just observing my own self. We have this thing built in that says, if I just had this little ritual routine, ceremonial, that I can do something. Now I feel like it's really done. For example, if you're going to launch a ship, you take a wine bottle and you crack it on the ship and say, now, christen the ship. Or you make a deal and you shake hands, or somebody has a baby and you smoke a cigar, or you say something, or you sing a song, or you You do something. And until you do it, you sing happy birthday to the person who has a birthday. Yeah, now we officially recognize it. We officially did it. There's this thing that we have built into us. We just have to do this thing, and then it's done. Then it's official. Then it's real. That's the ZAYIN. How was your week? Just take Shabbat, and it's like, okay, the week's done. It's over. It is what it is. It was what it was. Next week will be what it's like. There's something about the ZAYIN which is just a finality. So I can say there's something about the week that's the finality. There's something about the crucifixion, which is the finality. But it's also the beginning, because the number 8, technically they say it means new beginning. It's like this concept of the infinity. It's like the gate of the Mishkan, the gate of the kingdom of like Yahweh's name. It's like we're outside, we're cut off, we're separated from him. So if I see Het as this castle with a moat around it, well, the moat is a type of weapon. It's an aquatic weapon. So that's a ZAYIN. Well, yeah, but you would need a bridge to cross the moat, a drawbridge. You can get into the castle. Well, that's the Vav is a bridge. So I could say, well, if the Vav is connect and ZAYIN is disconnect, but ZAYIN also means to swear a vow. To swear a vow is the connection. So the ZAYIN swearing a vow is the Vav. See, now the ZAYIN is used to identify what the Vav is, because there's different ways to read it. I can say if the ZAYIN is the disconnect, like the moat, you're not allowed in, but the Vav allows you in. It crosses over. Again, I'm trying to zero in my mind, picturing these things, and the interplay of them is not always in one direction. They affect each other. Hey, Vav ZAYIN, behold this, hey, the ZAYIN Vav. Behold, man, this. It's not necessarily English syntax of sentence structure. I'm just trying to explain. It's a secret code, but as you contemplate the matters yourself, in your own mind, in your own way of looking at it, you might see something different than I see. But this is what I see. And this is the way Yeshua was the one who came in disguise. Bet Gimel Dalet means cloaked, clothed, disguise, camouflage. It means to betray or deceive, which is camouflage, like a spy. He came as a spy? If he comes from heaven to earth camouflaged, why should I think that? Why do you think he had the conversation with his disciples? Why do you think that conversation is included in the gospel narrative when he says, hey, I've been hanging out with you guys for a few years now. Tell me, who do people think I am anyway? What are you guys hearing out there in various random conversations? Who do people think I am? Somebody said, well, one guy thinks you're Elijah. Why would he think that? Elijah's supposed to come back. Somebody thinks you're actually John the Baptist. John the Baptist is my cousin, and he was killed in prison. Why do they think I'm him? Well, they think that there's just some kind of confusion. You're this guy, that guy, whoever, whatever. Nobody knows. And then Peter said, thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God. It's like, oh, Peter. But then Yeshua said, you didn't figure that out on your own. The Holy Spirit must have ratted me out. I had a good disguise. Nobody could figure out who I really am. I know that because it's a good disguise. The Holy Spirit must have told you. What? He was saying, I am here voyaging to the earth in the disguise as the man who are now going to be put to the weapon. He was claiming, but see, you've got to be able to know what does Bet Gimel Dalet mean? And how does that fit in the gospel narrative? And again, the Jews don't read the New Testament by and large, so they don't have access to this stuff. But by and large, the Christians got nothing to do with the Moedim, so they don't have access to this stuff. So this whole idea that Elohim in Zephaniah 3:8 and 3:9, he says, I'm going to restore the pure language to the earth so they can all worship me with one shoulder, with one consent, Yechad, Shechem. like heave-ho picking up this big beam. And so we were talking about a couple weeks ago that verse where it says, let us go to Jerusalem. Let us go, and he will tell us, he will teach us of his ways. And it's like, why do you got to go to Jerusalem? You can sit here right here and look at this language. It's like, how many people have to go to Jerusalem? And where in Jerusalem are you going to find a place where he's going to teach you of his ways? The word Jerusalem doesn't just mean Jerusalem. Yeah, it's the name of the city. Just so you know, I sent to Nicholas last night all these notes, and he put them up on the chat so you guys can have access to it. I have the word Jerusalem written down, but anyway, the word Jerusalem, resh vav shin, is poison. But it also, if you look at the last letters, resh shin tav, it means licensed, authorized, permitted. But resh vav shin is poison. And then shalom, shin lamed vav mem, shin lamed mem is a very similar word, just missing the vav. And it has to do with receiving the payoff, the inheritance. So you could say, okay, what's the story involved with Jerusalem? That's the name of the city. The Jebusites had lived there, and David took it over. And it's like, it's telling us more of a story. It goes back to the original story that I was talking about earlier, where you could say, Israel has a deal, a unique, exclusive relationship with Yahuwah Zavot, the Elohim of Israel. And you could say, well, off topic for a moment, why does he call himself Yahweh Zavot? Translated in Stone's Tanakh, Master of Legions, Captain of Armies. Lord Sabaoth, his name, from age to age the same. Martin Luther and the Mighty Fortresses Are God, him. Yeah, but what's S-A-B-A-O-T-H, Sabaoth? What does that mean? Sabbath? No, I've asked people, and it's like, nobody knows what it means. Zadi bet Aleph Vav Tav. Zadi bet Aleph is an army. Vav Tav is the plural, so it's armies. It doesn't say master of or captain of. It just, well, I mean, it must be legions of armies. That's what it must mean. So that's somebody's translation, interpretation. That's not what it says. Zadi bet Aleph Vav Tav. Well, Zadi bet is turtle. So armies of turtles could be that. But it's also a covered wagon. So it's that which swells up, that which inflates, because Zadi is a blossoming, an expanding, and what's bet? Bet is a house. So an enlarged house, a flowering house could be a Zadi bet. What's Aleph Vav Tav? Look at Klein's dictionary. A sign, a symbol, a signal, an oath. Stipulations agreed to, which is a synonym with the word debar, the debarim. He gave us stipulations. We agreed. Everything Yahweh says, we will hear and we will do. Exodus 19, I think it's also in Exodus 23. Two places, everybody of Israel said, everything Yahweh says, we will hear and we will do. That's the sworn vow. That's the Zion. And Yahweh said, if you guys listen to my voice and walk in my ways, I will bless you beyond any blessing. He told Abraham, he told David, he told Moshe, he told through all the various prophets. And if you guys do not listen to my voice, there's Leviticus 23, Deuteronomy 28. If you consider my stuff to be reproachful, abhorrent, distasteful, or have a casual disregard, the curse comes down on you. Your enemies get all your stuff. Everything I gave you, I'm going to call your enemies in. Not only is the matter of fact, if you do this, this is what happens. But not only that, I'm going to call in your enemies and compel them to tear you guys apart. Until, Deuteronomy 30, you come back to my words. So it's like this teeter-totter. And so when you look at that and you go, well, seesaw, Yeshua said, if I be lifted up, I will draw all men to me. How do you lift up Jesus? Do you sing about him on Christmas? Is that the way you lift him up? Or do you exalt his crucifixion? Is that the way you lift up Jesus? If you say, I'm going to make him a God, I'm going to say Jesus Christ is my God, is that the way you lift him up? Well, who's Jesus Christ? Who's Yahusha, the Mashiach? If this is who he is, how do you lift up this stuff? You do what he says. And if he says, sit down on Shabbat, the seventh day, and that's the proof you're listening to my voice, and that's the proof you're living up to your vow, sit down. Well, like a teeter-totter, if you sit down on the seventh day, he gets lifted up. Just a little picture. You stand up on the seventh day. I'm not going to sit down, because shin bet can mean to sit, to dwell, to return, to abide. You stand up on the seventh day to go do about your work, and he's unlifted up. He collapses. The cosmic seesaw. Yeshua is lifted up when we sit down on the Shabbat, on the Moedim. When we listen to his voice and do what he says, he is exalted. The word nun samic or nun shin both also mean to lift up. To lift up and carry. He said, take up your cross and follow me. To lift up your cross, to carry, that's all nun shin or nun shin aleph, like the word NASA, like the transportation agency that supposedly picks up and carries stuff into outer space and back, NASA, NASA of the United States. That's same phonetic sound as nun shin aleph, to pick up and carry. To pick up and carry a burden. For a man to get married and take upon himself the burden of a wife, of a family, of a household. To be a creditor who claims a debt, to pick up and carry the debt, that's also nun shin. For Yahusha to die on the cross and say, I am lifted up, nun samic and nun shin, and I hereby claim to be the creditor of your debt, so that I can het tet yod, find favor, because my sin offering is actually that man Yahusha, not the lamb. The lamb was not a sin offering on Pesach. The Yom Kippur goat on the Day of Atonement, 6 months later, was a sin offering. But the offering of the sacrifices for Sukkot and Pesach and these various other things, those weren't sin offerings either. How did a sin offering work? He said that he gave us for unintentional sins. In other words, if you made a mistake, you did an accident, or somebody says, you look, you just did this. It's like, I didn't do it on purpose. Prove it. Prove you didn't do it on purpose. It's going to cost me. I have to offer a sin offering. Here, I'll give you I'll conduct a barbecue for you, and you guys can, I'll buy you a meal because I did something wrong by accident. But there was no sin offering allowable for intentional sin. You're a big, stupid jerk and you do things to hurt people. There's no sin offering for you. So you could say, well, Jesus died on the cross to forgive all the world of all their sins. That's the way it's expressed, but that's not necessarily all there is to the story. You look at when Moshe said, show me your glory. And Yahuwah said, nobody can see my face and live, but I'll stick you in the crevice, the crack, the cleft of the rock, and I'll put my hand over you, and I'll pass by, and then I'll remove my hand, and you can see my backside. And he spoke. Yahuwah spoke. He said, Yahuwah, Yahuwah. He gave his name, and then he expressed something about his character and nature to his grandeur. He said, forgiving intentional sin. Well, that's the way it's expressed in English. He said, I choose of my own volition to forgive your intentional sin. And those of you who are not my people, are not walking in my ways, I will somehow redeem and deliver that and offer kindness. And can go back and read that in the book of Numbers, what he actually said. See, that's his doing. That's not us being allowed to offer a sacrifice for our intentional sin. So whatever Yahusha accomplished on the cross wasn't just a replacement for, oh, he gave us sin offerings and now he was a sin offering, so we don't have to do sin offerings anymore. See, the sin offering was never about a bad attitude where we just didn't do what he said we should do. I mean, I could say, well, if we were all taught a bad religion, untruth, trickery, deception, beguilement, so that we did not walk in his ways, so that we defiled ourselves with abominations, eating pork, wearing wool mixed with silk. You're not allowed to do that. Wool mixed with linen, working on the seventh day, thinking that the first day was actually the sacred day, celebrating baby Jesus on Christmas. That's a pollution. That's an abomination that he hates. Why would he then bless this guy, this pastor in this church, by giving him a hug and a pillar of fire and smoke and having a Christmas tree in the church? Why would he validate that? I don't know why he validates anything. All I can say is, what did he say? So I'm not accusing the guy who put out that video of being an infidel. All I can say is the evidence of what the guy said was that it was not kadosh. It wasn't what Yahweh said. And that's wonderful for him if he still has a real relationship with Yahweh Zavot, the Elohim of Israel. But I see Yahweh saying, if you don't keep Passover, you're not my people. If you don't keep Sukkot, you're not my people, because that's what my people do. If you eat swine, you get rejected. What? That's what he said. That's what he said. Am I going to say if you have bacon on your cheeseburger, you're going to burn in the lake of fire forever? I'm not saying that, but he said something that sure looks too close to that to be comfortable. So I'm not going to eat bacon on a cheeseburger ever again. Not going to eat pork. I'm not going to eat crab and scallops. He said not to. I have to circumcise my heart. I have to change my behavior. I have to ZAYIN my normal Vav man life on the face of the earth in order to be his people, get into his chet. And he says, any man that won't do what I say that they should do, they're going to be cut off from being my people. Does that mean no Christians are his people? I'm not saying that, but it's a pretty serious question. Well, if Jesus came and changed everything, but he said, I didn't come of my own volition to change anything. I say what I hear my Father saying, and I do what I see my Father doing, and his Father's words that he gave his people are forever, and he doesn't change. He won't ever change. They're an eternal covenant. See, this sets up this terrible conflict of understanding, because we've got 2,000 years of millions of people who are good Christians, let's say, even though Catholics and Protestants hate each other and think the other are going to burn in hell, and Orthodox and Catholic are opposed. And even amongst the Protestants, there's tens of thousands of different permutations, and nobody knows what the truth is. But even still, let's just hope they all find life. But Yeshua said, "You find life." Many are deceived or are unwilling or are wayward and will not enter in. So ZAYIN is this exclusive 1 day out of 7, few compared to many. If you're a man and you're not circumcised, you're not allowed to come in and keep Passover. And yet his people are supposed to keep Passover forever, throughout all your generations, and Sukkot. Though only Passover was the one that said you had to be circumcised. Why? Because it was validating this pattern. If I looked at these first 7 and compare them thematically to the next 11, what you have is, let there be light, lines up with Het Tet Yod, lines up with Passover. Let there be light, day 1. Compared to the darkness, the Chosek, illiterate, unusable, undeveloped, darkness, perhaps even the word sin. We're in the land of the dead, and he offers life. Let there be light. And you can choose, hey, look at, you can dial it. You can choose to enter the house of the Father, reading the letters backwards, by connecting your choice to the exclusion of being his people and say, yes, I choose life. I choose blessing. So there's the whole message right there. To enter into the kingdom of heaven, the kingdom of Yahweh, the zone of what's on the other side of Pesach. If Pesach is just the beginning, the door, Yahweh said in Exodus 20, I am Yahweh, your Elohim. I just brought you out of Egypt, out of bondage and slavery. Have no other gods connected to my face. Don't allow there to be or cause there to be lo yehi laka. Of your own personal hand, do not mix or blend or confuse my face with any other, well, except Jesus. That's his face, and he has a bunch of different rules and a bunch of different laws and a different dynamic of relationship. Is that not an Elohim Achrim? Especially if we call him Elohim and say, well, Achar can mean Ach, his brother, Chet Resh is white or white-haired. So don't we have a picture of him with white hair as our brother who's this glorious Elohim? Is he not an Elohim Achrim? So how can I say Yahweh is my Elohim and then believe Jesus Christ is my Elohim, who came later, next, future, as a different sort of character with different? It's like, gosh, I'm just saying, you start studying these words and it's going to kick your head around. But where's the truth? Well, at least we can believe the truth because they get miracles. They get pillars of fire and the guy gets a hug from Jesus. Only they have Sunday worship and Christmas. You can worship any day, but they call Sunday the holy day and they have the Christmas tree and call his name Jesus instead of Yahuwah or Yahusha. And it's like, gosh darn it. If they just straighten up, then I could believe them. But they won't straighten up. They won't go back to the truth. So why should I believe them? It's a predicament. If I say day one, let there be light, this line right here, Genesis 1. There was an existing darkness. He said, let there be light. That's like you were slaves in Egypt and now there's kingdom of heaven. Day two was separating water from water, heaven from earth. That's like what happened between Aleph and Bet. There's one and now there's two. There's Aleph, now there's Aleph and Bet. And then Gimel is the blue, purple, red. That's like Yod, Hey, Vav. That the connector, the Gimel, the tether, Yahusha, red blood of Mashiach, purple, the royal decrees of the Torah, the blue, the hand, the Yod, the creator. I'm just saying these things are all tied in. Then the white, the Hey of Samik Ayin Pei, the Hey of the robes of righteousness. Do justly, love mercy, walk humbly with your Elohim, Micah 6:8. That is what the robes of righteousness look like. That is the Hey of Yod, Hey, Vav, Hey. If Yod is the hand of the creator, the first way that he expressed who he is and his majestic power is to create the universe, the Yod, the hand of the creator. And then he declared the Torah. He expressed his ways. And then Vav, the Mashiach, came to be the embodiment in Adamic human form. And then he said, follow me, walk in my ways. Hey, the second hey, identical with the first hey, the ways of the Ruach leading us, it should be the ways of the Torah. How then can the bride of Christ come up with a different name and a different day and different Moedim and a different set of laws that there don't exist according to the Torah? It's like, don't you see the problem? And if there is a problem, then to distort what he said is what the definition of abomination is. And if what he said brings life, Ezekiel 20, which if a man does, he will live in it. Then the desolation, the abomination which brings desolation, is to not walk in his ways. To change his Sabbath day is the abomination of desolation. To change from Yahuwah to the Lord God Jesus Christ, who did away with the Torah, that no Jew then can follow. Talking to the guy the other day, who those Jews need to become believers in Jesus. Not if Jesus represents no Torah. No good Jew can believe in Jesus if Jesus Christ represents the way of thinking that the Torah is done away with. Bad Jesus, wrong Jesus. Yahusha validates the whole thing. So that if the Christians stopped the Christmas celebration, the Easter celebration, the Halloween celebration, and started keeping the Moedim, well, maybe a Jew might say, what are you guys doing? How are you going to prove? There's the verse that talks about provoking the Jews to jealousy, that the Gentiles are going to provoke Jews to jealousy. They can't unless they're walking in the ways of Torah. There's no jealousy. You're going to make me jealous that I'm not an infidel? What are you thinking? You're an idiot. I'm not jealous of that. I say that because the wise man believes in Elohim and will listen to his voice and walk in his ways, doing what he says. Proverbs says it's the fool, the idiot, who says there is no God. Well, the Christians believe in God. It's like, you can't invent for yourself Elohim. They're not Elohim. Jeremiah 16. So the only way to say I believe in God, I believe in Elohim, is I believe in the truth. And the truth is Yahweh declared himself in his witness and testimonies in the Moedim. It seems like such a simple thing. There's got to be something bigger than this. No, it's as simple as, it's like, well, we need to at least drink a glass of wine or shake hands or set off fireworks. And if you set off fireworks, then you know the New Year's happened. It's like we need to have this ritual. So he gave us Sukkot and said, hey, don't work the first day and the last day. Take the week off and be my people. Celebrate with one another. Yeah, we got to do something. Okay, here. Take some lulav, 4 species of trees, and rejoice. Yeah, but did we do it? Did you rejoice? Can't we kill something? If we kill something, then we feel like we've done it. Okay, go ahead and kill something. But it's not about killing something. It's not about the sacrifice. It's about doing what I said. So I can sit here and say, well, then why did he give us the sacrifice? If he said it's not about the sacrifice. So whenever anybody says, oh, you're keeping the Torah, you're sacrificing animals, it's like, I guess you guys don't get it either. Good question. You don't get it either. I'm not even going to answer your question. You think that's what I'm doing? You think that's what about? But he did say to kill an animal in Passover. What does it look like to be his people? Listen to his voice with all your heart and do what he says. With a zeal, a fervent attitude of thrill, of, I'm glad we can do this. And then when you hear people say, nobody can do it, you can't do that. It's impossible to do it. Bad laws nobody can live by, Ezekiel 20:24. And it's like, that's not what he's referring to. You guys have changed the definition. I've heard Torah teachers preach that bad laws nobody can live by is the scroll of the Torah. No, I disagree. He said because we wouldn't walk in his ways and keep the instructions of the Torah, he's going to send us among the nations, overlorded, oppressed by our enemies, and then they will give us their bad laws nobody can live by because we didn't want Yahweh's laws. So the way this whole teeter-totter works is we come back to do what he said. Sit down on Shabbat, keep the Moedim, justice and kindness, love and mercy, truth. Be that people. And then he said he gave all the stuff that he gave his people to our enemies until the time that the punishment of being alienated from him, alienated from the land, has its effect, which is to change our heart. And then he's going to make our enemies give all the stuff back. Yeah, but our enemies aren't going to tell us about that. They're going to lie to us and say, no, that's not the way it works. It's very similar to what some people know is called the ZAYIN Act. What that was basically, in a nutshell, King Henry VIII in England owed a bunch of money to the church, I think it was what it was, and he couldn't pay it back, so he had a war, and all the men who went off to war, the crown, the government would then take over taking care of the families that are left behind. So they say, hey, well, you guys, you men are at war, we'll be power of attorney for you, and we're going to take over the jurisdiction of maintaining your property and your family and all your crops and animals. And then when you come back from war, then we'll give it back to you. But we'll just be the custodians. Well, the idea was that a bunch of guys would get killed, and so then the crown would own all this land and crops and animals and children. Only too many guys came back. Not enough got killed, and so the crown of England was saying, we're still in trouble here. And then somebody came up with a big idea. It's like, no, wait a minute. People get lost at sea, and other people come back, and we don't have any way to validate their identity. So we'll just keep everything in our name until those guys can come back and prove that they're alive and they want their estate back. And then we'll give it back to them because we're just temporary custodians. And they thought, okay, that was a great plan. So some people come back and they're kind of brain dead, shell shocked, or whatever it is, and they can't think straight. So we'll maintain the custodianship over their property, their estate. But then when somebody comes back and says, no, this is me, I can prove this is me, and this is my family and my crops and my house, and so give it back to me now. Oh, okay, we'll give it to you. But how do you prove that? How do you prove that you're you and that you are really thinking, sentient, conscious, able, and can take over your property? You've got to prove that. Prove that you are the one who lives. That's ZAYIN, written in Latin, French, something. Anyway, yeah, those laws are still on the books, even 500 years ago. And so the people that are now saying, hey, we got to fill out certain forms and go to certain courts and get authenticated birth certificates so that we can prove that we are alive and we're here to regain our estate that 500 years ago our forefathers coughed up and gave to the crown, but it's still just a law in the books that we're fitting and able to recover. Well, see, that's a model of exactly what's going on with Israel. Israel, the lost 10 tribes in particular, if you look at the northern kingdom, got ejected out into the world, scattered like lost seed. But Yahweh said, no, nobody's lost. And once the land has been cleansed because of the duration of time, and when he gave the curse of 7 times 390, 2,730 years, Ezekiel chapter 4, once that has been accomplished, where the hearts were cleansed, changed, purified, and the land was purified, then he would bring us back and he would restore the blessing when we teshuvah, returned to his Torah. And he then would make the custodians of our inheritance, as it were, our heritage, give it back to us. Well, they're not going to want to give it back because that means they can't make use of it. Yeah, but they don't have any choice when it comes to Yahuwah. So when it comes to the ZAYIN, those guys, the banksters and the government officials and all, they keep changing the rules and dancing around and closing the office and pretending like they don't know what's going on. So very few people have been able to accomplish the exchange. Yeah, but is anybody doing it with Israel? See, I can say the model of what's going on in the world, the culture, the government, the religion is just like this image of what's going on in reality. But the reality is Yahweh said so. He said this is what's going on the face of the earth. There's 6,000 years and then a seventh millennium. And the people that say, well, there's like 20,000 years of life on earth or 40,000 years of life on earth or whatever it is. Well, maybe there was, maybe there wasn't. It doesn't matter. But there's a recognizable generational clock that says we've got at least 6,000 and we're right now at the cusp of the beginning of the seventh. And just like the Shemitah year, just like the Sabbath day, if we are at the edge between the 6,000 and the 7,000th millennium, then we are standing at the threshold of the Sabbath millennium. And if that's what he was waiting for, so the timing synchronizes, then we have to have the consciousness that we are allowed to return and regain everything that he gave away to our enemies, and they can't say no. He's going to choke it out of them, and they're going to cough it up and give it to us. That's what he said. And if I say, well, maybe, no, that's what the Israelites said going into the promised land. He says, everything's ready. They're living in the land. They have built castles. They have built farms. And you guys get to come in and take it over. You get to live in houses you didn't build and drink the wine from the vineyards that you didn't harvest. That's the model for where we are now. And if I have this in my mind and say, really? Well, that's what he said. Yeah, but nobody's talking about that. Doesn't matter. That's what he said. Nobody knows what the heck he's talking about because they changed it all. The Jews don't want us to mess with their stuff, and the Christians have distorted and convoluted, and the historians have lied, and then you got AI lying, and it's just like, yeah, but what did Yahweh say? So for me to be in this position and say, hey, Yahweh, you said that when we came back to have a heart for your words and your law, your Torah, that you would restore your favor, that you wouldn't even listen to our voice if we didn't listen to your voice, but this is your voice. And we are your people, and we want to listen to your voice, and we want to receive from you everything you said, because we're going to do everything you said you wanted us to do. Please inform us what that is, so that we can do it to your pleasure, fulfilling your destiny of what you said. We are your heritage. You are our heritage. We are your people. You are our Elohim, Yahuwah Zavot, the Elohim of Israel. So please make it so. Because Yahweh, you are the one who makes it so. As you said, it came out of your mouth, and so it is. And we're getting near the end, I believe, here, but there's a few things about words. The words that in Hebrew that mean, and he said. Vayomer. It's in Genesis 1. And Elohim said. So when he says something, it comes out of his mouth and it exists. That's the reality. If this is the word that he said in John 1, that's the reality. Yod Aleph Mem Resh, Amer. Nam Yahweh, Nun Aleph Mem. That's like this declaration. Nun Aleph Mem. Aleph Mem is if, it's the word for mother, but it's another word that means it's this imperial decree. Debar, that's the word for word or speech. Debar Yahweh. Mem Lamed Lamed, speech or utterance. Hey Bet Tet, that's an utterance, but it's also the aspect to be able to see what this is. So for Moshe to lift up the snake on the stick, the serpentine shape, shiny shape on the trellis apparatus was Hey Bet Tet. For Yeshua to be lifted up similarly is to be able to visualize the aspect of the word. Orthography of the letters fits that description. Mem Vav Zadi Aleph, that which has gone out of his mouth. So it's the Motzeh. It's not really often translated word, but that's exactly what it is. And if you look up how do you say word or utterance in Hebrew, that's one of the words that shows up. MShKN Aleph, like in Jeremiah 23, where he says, nobody better say this ever again. Masa Yahweh, MShKN Aleph is the object of the Sheen Aleph. Sheen Aleph, I think, can also mean sheep or that which go out. MShKN Aleph, the utterance of a prophet, an oracle or word, or something lifted or carried, because the mem is the object of, like Nun Shin Aleph, NASA, to pick up and carry. So for Yahweh to give to somebody something that they can pick up and carry, well, he gave us his words, he gave us his Torah. But nun shin aleph can also mean to deceive. Mem shin aleph vav nun, deception. So it's interesting that the same word that means this is the utterance of a prophet can also mean this is the deception. How do you know the difference? What did Yahweh say? Mem shin aleph tav, different suffix, is an uprising smoke signal carrying a message. An uprising smoke signal where you can put a blanket over it and let the smoke puffs go up like Morse code type of thing. Mem shin shin. Well, shin shin is the word for 6 or rejoicing or white, and it means reality, palpable. Because mem shin, where you get the word mush, like something feels mushy, you can feel it and touch it, like MShKN, the touchable, tangible word made flesh. Mem shin shin, mashash means reality, palpable, to feel, grope, touched, and also rejoicing. Mem shin shin noon, just stick a noon at the end, and it's an insect antenna by which the feelers that it touches and finds its way. I'm just saying that I'm giving you an example of taking this one word for mem shin aleph, the utterance of a prophet, and that he said nobody better say that. And then you look in the dictionary under all these derivatives. That's the nature of the study, where you realize this is how the Hebrew language is designed, how it functions, how it's built. Mem shin tav, hey, tav just being that suffix of being, well, that's like future or past, but you look at mem shin tav, and mem is the time or the place or the one or the object of shin tav is where you get the word sit, like bet rish aleph shin yod tav, bereshit, shin tav, a drinking banquet, a feast or foundational. And when Yeshua said, drink my blood, here, drink from this cup, it's also, the word blood is similarity. So the foundational feast is being similar to him. And he's the guy that's composed of these letters. It's like, I'm saying that as an encouragement to validate the effort to say, what other subject on the face of the earth, anywhere in the universe, can you spend your time looking at? Look at stuff on the internet. Nowadays, you're being lied to consistently. Mem shin shin hey. Well, shin shin is 6, so that's a hexagon or something divided into 6 parts, like a day of the week. But the set apart thing, which is not part of the 6, is the 7. So the ZAYIN is the passage into the het. Hey vav. Hey, you got to connect. It's an exclusive consciousness. What did Yahweh say? And if you're not thinking, hey, what did Yahweh say? You're not Zioning. And then you could say, somebody asked a question a couple weeks ago, how do you kuf? What's the kuf? Well, the kuf means after this. It's the back of the head. It's a circle in a line like our letter Q, and it's almost shaped like that magnifying glass, like the mushroom shape, the helicopter view, the overview of, it's not, well, let's do this, and then we'll do this, then we'll do this. I mean, you can study it that way, but it's a building, developing inclusion of the I am, the in the body, gimmeling, dallating. Hey, by the time you get to kuf, you're already doing all this stuff at the same time synchronously. Nun aleph mem nun. Nun aleph mem nam is to make a speech, but aleph mem nun is that word faithful. So to say whatever Yahweh said, nun aleph mem nun, amen, steadfast, firm, sure, faithful, trustworthy, reliable, and trustee. Whatever he said is what we're supposed to be faithful to. Not imagine some other belief, some other faith. Oh, I believe he's going to be like this or like that. And it's like, if it's not what he said, you're believing in a fake God, and you can't invent fake gods for yourself. So you're believing in nothingness. If you believe that the first day of the week is the holy day, it's the proof, it's the indicator that you have a fake God. Get that in your head. That should be like an assault of a slap across the face or a kick in the butt, that you better pay attention. You got the lake of fire staring at you. Mem bet ayin. Bet ayin is that which bubbles up. Whatever comes up, whatever's in a man's heart comes up into his speech. What's in Yahuwah's heart came out in his speech. And it's pure truth that ought to be listened to because it doesn't change, even though they told us it changed. Yod, Het Yod Dalet. Well, Het Yod Dalet is something hid, like HID, hid. It's a riddle. It's one of the words that means utterance. Shin Pei Tav Yod Mem. Shin Pei Tav is language, or that which opens up. Pei Tav Het versus taken for a fool. Pei Tav Hey. Hey Gimel Yod Hey to navigate the phonetics. Mem Lamed Vav Lamed, which is a derivative of Mem Lamed Lamed, which is speech, but Lamed Vav Lamed is where you get the word lul, like the lulav at Sukkot, or lila. Lamed Lamed is like this spiraling, like a spiral staircase concept. It also means literal. Hey, hey, mouth, express. Mem Lamed Vav Nun. So you look at Mem Lamed Lamed and you take the second letter and duplicate it, make it the same as the third. Or you could just take Mem Lamed and then add other suffix to it. Mem Lamed Vav Nun. Lamed Vav Nun, Lamed Yod Nun means to spend the night, to stay at a hotel. So Mem Lamed Vav Nun is a lodging place of words, a lexicon, a dictionary. So what I'm saying is as you just simply take like that one word and just start messing around with it, you realize that it's like playing with Tinker Toys or Lincoln Logs or an erector set. You can sit here and just start playing with the language if you know what the letters are, and it always works. It always fits. Another little example. I can say, what did Yahweh say? How would I say that in Hebrew? Mem hey is the word what. What, how, why, which way, ma, lama, why? Why have you done this? Lama. Mem hey, what? How do you say the word say? Amer, Aleph Mem Resh, Ma, Amer, Yahweh. What did he say? I could put Yod Aleph Mem Resh, or I could say Ma, Amer, Yahweh. And if I take that as an acronym, Mem Aleph Yod, may, Yah. So what does that mean? Mem Aleph Yod. Well, Nun Aleph Hey, see, I can change the prefix, and I know that mems and nuns are related. Nun Aleph Hey means comely, befitting, adorned. A meadow, took pleasure in. Nun Aleph Vav Tav, suitable, fit, proper. Mem is a place of. Aleph Yod, see, Mem Aleph Yod is just an acronym from what did Yahweh say? Aleph Yod means island. It's the word if, where, or not. It's like, how do you find the island? What did Yahweh say? How do we know what he said? It's like trying to find an island. Well, if it's at nighttime, you can look at the stars and maybe you can calculate. But if you're out in the open sea and saying, well, where's that island? Without reference to land, you're lost. Like, what did Yahweh say? You're lost unless you have some reference. That's the alphabet. The alphabet is the map of navigation. Aleph Yod Tav. See, Mem Aleph Yod Tav means spelling words. Aleph Yod Vav Tav, the action of spelling words. Aleph Vav Tav, the letters by which you spell words, by which you determine what did he stipulate, what did he say, and that's the sign, the oath, the symbol, the flag, the insignia. So if you know, you know. That's kind of like what it means, Mem Aleph Yod. If you know what Yahweh said, you know what Yahweh said. If you don't know what Yahweh said, you're like lost, can't find the island, and you have no idea what the truth is. You're just hoping that the guy who told you, the professor, the priest, the prophet, the seer, the necromancer, the guy who had the vision of the pillar of fire and smoke, sure hope he was telling me the truth because Jesus is real, like it says. And it's like, Jesus is real. Is that the upshot of having a smoke coming out of your office? And you're going to have how many people at your Christmas celebration? And gosh. See, the word Aleph Yod means woe, and it's a jackal shrieking. Tav Nun, Aleph, is also the word for jackal, which means the one who has teeth. Tav Nun is also to teach the stipulations. So I could sit there and look at all these definitions of words and say, Yahuwah gave Israel stipulations, which Israel gets blessed and finds life if Israel walks in Yahuwah's ways. But if Israel does not walk in Yahuwah's ways, they're going to get torn apart by jackals, shrieking, and he's not going to listen to their screams because they refuse to listen to his voice. That's the upshot of the whole thing. Anyway, there's there's more stuff that I think we're out of time here. There's some more stuff here that I had written that are sent in on the notes. Just to mention a couple, what does he actually measure? He doesn't measure the outside of the vessel, the cleanliness of the sepulcher, the tomb. He measures what's in the heart. And the concept of have these words written on your heart. Take them to heart with all your madly. That's a measure of your personal capacity, not compared to anybody else. To focus on what he said, mem or hey bet tet, you pronounce that like habit. That's that word for to look at and gaze at the other aspect of the utterance. Mention one other thing. The in Second Chronicles, Yahuwah is talking to Solomon, and I'm going to show you just real quickly one of the examples of the Mishkan pattern. He said, "If my people," see, he didn't say, "Hey, you're my people, I'm going to bless you." Jesus died on the cross, so I'm going to bless you. He said, if your first condition, if you're my people, how does that line up with Passover and the fence? My people keep Passover. I'm their Elohim. They're my people. They are circumcised of heart, and the men are circumcised of flesh, so that they can enter in and keep that. Who are called by my name. So if I look at each phrase of the qualification as the next step, what is it? How do I compare called by my name with the altar of sacrifice, the feast of unleavened bread, the word matzah, which means find out how to do something? To be people who are called by my name, if they're not walking in the Torah, they're leading people astray like wolves in sheep's clothing, like false priests, liars, nachash. They're not representing my name. Adam and Eve should have recognized that. Adam and Hua. We should recognize that when people change what he says. If my people, called by my name, humble themselves. The word ayin nun hey is to humble, which is also means to make it your burden, to make it your occupation, to respond, to sing. These are all definitions of the word ayin nun hey. To be humbled by, to be burdened by, to take it to heart. Pray, lining up with the psalmic, the menorah. Seek my face, lining up with the ayin. Turn from their wicked ways, lining up with the pay. Zadi, the hope set before you, that blossoming, then I will hear from heaven. In Isaiah 58, the whole reason for humbling yourself was so that you would have your voice heard in heaven. He says, you think this is what it's about? Don't eat something, then I'll hear your voice. He's telling us here, this is how we have to do this, and then he'll hear our voice. And then you might say the kufu, the overview, forgive them their sin and heal the land. That's the upshot of what comes from it. That's the Mishkan pattern right there in Chronicles as he's speaking to Solomon, as if this was a formula. Choose to be his people. What does it mean to be his name? To be called by his name is to be doing what he's said to do and being the accurate representation of him. And if he said the seventh day is the Kadosh day, the set apart day, you can't change it to the first and think you're still his people. It doesn't work that way. Everything Yahweh said, we will hear, we will do. Exodus 19:8, Exodus 24:3, that is the great vow. Shin Bet Ayin is the number 7, and it means to swear a vow. That's the vow that we were sworn into. That's how you connect and become his people. Everything Yahweh said, we will hear and we will do. If they've changed it, it's not Elohim, it's a fraud, and it's powerless, even if there's signs and wonders. So a pastor of a church who's having a Christmas tree and Sunday is the holy day. Now, I don't know. That might have been AI. I don't even know if that's a real man, but I'm just saying, I have to hold a tolerance and say, he doesn't tolerate us not listening to his voice. So I'm not allowed to tolerate somebody changing his voice and give that any credibility at all. Okay. I guess that's the bottom line. That's the foundation of where we're at. Anyway, I'd say we're at the end of the time here. So you want to sign us out, Carla?
I'm in a lot of noise. If you wanna close out in prayer, and then I can sign us out.
Okay, just hey Yahweh, look at we're your people wanting to do your stuff. Everything you say, we will hear and we will do. So please bless us and please return to us as we are those who live. Sedeke Vai, because you are the Elohim of life. So we live because that's your blessing. Thank you, B'Shem Yahusha, who came to show us the way and point us back to your household, your teaching. Thank you. Amen. May it be so. Hallelujah.